Now, Arsenal have never been known as a club that sells well. We just have never been that. Despite having the likes of Thierry Henry, Alexis Sanchez, Mesut Ozil, I could just make a whole list of elite players we have had in the past. The most money we have ever sold a player for from Arsenal is Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain to Liverpool for just £35 million. Now, we did sign Oxlade-Chamberlain from Southampton when he was 17 for €13.8 million, and then 6 years later sold him to Liverpool for €38 million. A good return on investment, I would say. But when you think about that being the biggest ever sale we have ever made, and you compare it to the other big six teams, it just shows how bad Arsenal are at selling players. Spurs' highest ever sale was Gareth Bale to Real Madrid for then record-breaking £87 million. Chelsea's is Hazard to Madrid for £90 million. Man United is Ronaldo to Real Madrid for £80 million. Liverpool is Coutinho to Barcelona for £142 million. And even Man City's is Raheem Sterling to Chelsea for £49 million. Yet our highest is Oxlade-Chamberlain for £35 million. And based off of sales we have made under the new regime of Edu and Arteta, it doesn't look like we'll be changing this narrative anytime soon. With the inevitable outgoings of Nuno Tavares and Sambi Lokonga going on loan with obligations to buy for a combined £19.5 million for the two of them, it's getting to the point where we just haven't ever done enough. And even with the fact that we need to make sales, call me crazy, but with these two players, we really should have looked to make more of these two players in transfers than we are actually going to. But why do I think that Arsenal could have and probably should have got more for Tavares and Lokonga? Well, that's what we'll be talking about today. So what's going on, everyone? You are listening to Gunner Central here. I hope you're all doing well. Please be sure to like the video, subscribe if you haven't already, and let's get into it. Albert Sambi Lokonga and Nuno Tavares were brought into Arsenal just 9 days apart in the summer of 2021, with hopes that both of them could grow and could progress in this Arsenal team under Mikel Arteta to eventually become starters, or at the bare minimum to a point where we could at least sell them on for a decent profit. They were both bought in for a combined £23 million and are now 3 years later leaving for a combined £19 million, which doesn't sound like a bad loss. It's only £4 million loss. But with the missed opportunity to make more on both of them, plus the markets and I suppose just overall inflation in the world, it really isn't a great move by Arsenal. Now, we'll start off with the player where we had less leverage and the player that in general we should expect less from in the market, that being the now 24-year-old Nuno Tavares. Now, I want to make a full video soon about Nuno and why, despite seemingly having all the tools and all the ability to become a success at Arsenal, he has just completely failed. So I'm not really going to go into depth as far as that goes in this video, but more so focusing on the price and why I think we messed it up a little bit with Nuno. Now, Nuno was 21 years old when he was brought in for just £7 million from Benfica, and at the time, £7 million was kind of a bargain for the ex-Benfica left-back. Yes, he was very raw, but at the age of 21 in a young team with the manager in Mikel Arteta looking to develop youngsters like he did with Saka and Smith Rowe, it was a good price to pay. I remember thinking that this was kind of a low-risk, high-reward move by Arsenal, but after playing just 28 games in his first season for Arsenal in all competitions, he was rightfully loaned out to Marseille, where he played 39 games and scored 6 goals at Marseille. Now, his loan wasn't a major success by any stretch of the imagination, so when he came back last summer, there wasn't great interest from clubs around Europe in Nuno Tavares, especially according to some reports that Arsenal's asking price for the raw left-back was £15 million. Now, I understand he was pretty okay at Marseille, he had some really good performances, but in my eyes, this should have been the summer that we sold him, even for something like £9 to £10 million. £15 million was clearly too high for clubs around Europe. Yet instead of lowering our asking price, we sent Nuno Tavares on a season-long loan to Premier League newcomers in Nottingham Forest with an option to buy of £12 million. But you can't help but feel that if we shopped Nuno around for £9 to £10 million last summer, then we could have sold him permanently last summer. But Arsenal took the gamble that Nuno would play fairly well at Forest, and if Forest decided to not buy him permanently for £12 million, well then at least he could come back and we could try get him for our original £15 million asking price. But now, this summer, we have agreed on a season-long loan to Lazio with an obligation to buy of just £7.5 million for Nuno Tavares, essentially breaking even for a now 24-year-old. Now, this isn't actually that bad of business by Arsenal. He hadn't played well at Forest, played just 12 games all season long. He's 24 years old, he has 1 year left on his contract, so to even break even for him, in my opinion, is fairly good. But like I said, I can't help but feel that if we lowered our asking price last summer to £10 million, well then we could have actually got him off our books back then. And I know you're probably sitting there thinking, well, what does it matter if we sell him for £7.5 million or £10 million? What does that £2.5 million difference actually do? But now with the new financial regulations, every penny matters. The more we make off sales, the more we can spend in the market. So every penny matters, and I really think we could have and probably should have sold Nuno last summer. But now onto the move I think we have completely screwed up in Albert Sambi Lokonga. Look, we brought in Lokonga for £16 million from Anderlecht in hopes that he'd eventually become the long-term solution for Thomas Partey, but that just didn't ever work out. Eventually loaning him out to Palace where he fumbled and just looked bad, and then last summer loaning him out to Luton Town where he actually played well and even received praise from none other than Jurgen Klopp about how good he had been in midfield for Luton Town. Now even there, he wasn't by any means groundbreaking at Luton, but with 2 years left on his deal, just about to turn 25, coming off of a decent season with a very poor team on paper in Luton Town, you would expect teams around Europe to take interest in the Belgian midfielder, and while they have done that, apparently a whole host of clubs from around Europe were very interested in bringing in Lokonga, with Sevilla eventually striking a deal with Arsenal on another season-long loan with an obligation to buy of just £12.5 million, making this transfer a £4 million loss on the Belgian midfielder. And even though we had more leverage on this transfer, being that he still had 2 years left on his deal, he came off of a pretty impressive season with Luton Town. A fairly big team like Sevilla was heavily interested, as well as other smaller teams around Europe. We settled to sell Lokonga for a season-long loan and a £12 million fee after that. Now yes, we needed to sell both these players, and on the Lokonga deal we still have a massive 25% sell-on clause, but I still think we could have done better. And now listen, I know we wanted to avoid another Nuno Tavares with Lokonga, being in a situation where we would try to ask too much for a player, scare clubs away, where we send him on another loan and he underperforms, then he comes back and we just have to take any deal we can get, being that he has 1 year left on his contract. But it just feels like both of these sales, mainly the Lokonga one in my eyes, we messed up a bit and we left some money on the table. Now listen, I am not a sporting director for a reason. I don't know what actual offers were made for either of the players. I wasn't in the negotiations. I'm simply a die-hard Arsenal fan with an opinion. But I'm really hoping that Arsenal from now on can do better in the sales department. We have never really been good at that, and under this regime, we haven't been good at that. And now with Aaron Ramsdale we want to sell, we are apparently expecting somehow a £50 million price tag for Aaron Ramsdale. Yeah, right. That is absolutely not happening. And I'm really frustrated about how we handle outgoings at this club right now. From releasing players like Orba and Ozil to just selling for whatever price we can get in Lokonga and Tavares, it does get frustrating from a fan's perspective. Like, I know we have done some really good work in the windows, mainly on players coming in, but we need to get better at outgoings and making sales. We need to know when to sell and how much to sell for. Like, it won't surprise me if for some reason this Arsenal team keeps Smith Rowe and Aaron Ramsdale, they sit on the bench for another season, and then we are forced to sell them for pennies on the dollar. Again, I am not a sporting director. I cannot do a better job than anyone at Arsenal, so I'm not talking from a perspective of I'm a better sporting director than Edu. That's just stupid. But I'm simply a fan that's getting slightly frustrated with the lack of success in how Arsenal handle our outgoings.